Heidi Love in the house, dropping knowledge and facts, uncovering the truth, no need for acting lax. She ain't afraid to speak her mind, breaking through the lies, rising up with love, taking us to new highs. We're living in a world full of secrets and deceit, but Heidi's here to expose, bringing truth to the beast. She's got a message, spreading it far and wide, from addiction to hope. She's on the other side. Ooh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Rise with me, Heidi Love. And today I have with me a wonderful guest. I'm so grateful he came on, Dr. Justin Sledge. He is a doctor of religious studies, Western Esotericism, as well as a philosophy doctorate. And I am excited to talk to you about some Jewish mysticism. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Spent my day teaching a class on Cornelius Agrippa and the occult philosophy of Cornelius Agrippa, and putting in a fan. We're renovating our bedroom, so we have an old house here in Detroit, and electrical wiring is what it is in an old house, and so trying to fit a brand new fan to 100-year-old electricity.
Oh no!
It's a good way to get electrocuted. So
don't do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
God forbid. So I'm glad I'm not electrocuted. Yeah,
Well, I'm glad you're here with us because we need people like you. I would dare say you're almost one of a kind in your area. I know you had to go clear out of the country for that doctorate of esotericism. It's very unusual. And so I think it's fantastic that you go on and you have classes and courses and teach people, because I just tell people all the time, even the Christians that come on my channel. I told you I'm kind of a weird Christian. Sometimes I'm not Christian enough for the Christians, but I'm not weird enough for clear on the other side. And I just always tell people knowledge is good. Knowledge is really important,
Yeah.
And so
especially on this kind of
great.
material that's relatively obscure and things like that. But I will say that I'm very happy that my channel does what it's able to do. But there are a couple of us out there, Angela Puka and Dana
Awesome.
Trell and Earl Fontenelle from that, and several other people. So it is a growing little community of people who are
Good.
doing this material, and I'm really blessed to be a member of that community, and very happy that Esoterica is so well received.
A fantastic channel. And I get questions constantly from my people on there. What is Kabbalah? What is this? What does this mean? Why do people wear red string bracelets and celebrities? And I'm like, look, I'm definitely not equipped to answer this. So you are. I know it's a big, broad. I get it, but yeah. What would you say to people like that? What is Kabbalah?
So Kabbalah is, the word in Hebrew just means to receive. It means that which is received. So literally you could just translate Kabbalah as tradition. So that's, now of course that it's a relatively straightforward translation of a quite complicated word. But in a more complicated way, Kabbalah is the Jewish strand of mysticism, primarily downstream of a series of 13th century texts called the Sefer Bahir, and most importantly, the Sefer Zohar. Sefer Zohar is a massive text that reinvented Jewish mysticism. That prior to that was another form of mysticism we could talk about, I suppose, if you want. But Kabbalah is downstream of that form of mysticism, and it's primarily concerned with really, sort of several big themes. The first big theme is the emanations of God. So these are like moments of development within the Godhead. There are 10 of them. They're called Sfirot, and so there are 10 of them. And in the process of creation, according to this, they become unbalanced. They come out of balance. And the task is that God sort of rains down God's mercy and judgment and glory and beauty, and our task is to follow the commandments of God and rebalance those out of balance forces. And once those out of balance forces are realigned, it's a bit like a combination lock. That once they're realigned, the lock turns and the world ends, basically. The messianic era comes, and that we become reunited with the divine. And this is all written about in great many texts. The Sefer Bahir, the Sefer Zohar. Of course, it goes under a very dramatic shift in the 16th century with a Kabbalist named Itzhak Luria, who really dramatically changes Kabbalah. And in some sense, all Kabbalah is now downstream of Itzhak Luria. Though I have a favorite Kabbalist that is not Itzhak Luria. It doesn't really matter to here or there. But Luria is now the Kabbalah that is basically the Kabbalah. Now, it's really important to distinguish between Jewish mysticism broadly construed and Kabbalah. Kabbalah is one form of Jewish mysticism. Prior to Kabbalah, there were other forms of Jewish mysticism, something like the Merkava mysticism, which is a form of mysticism by which one enters into alterations of consciousness and enters into into the very palaces in which God dwells, in the hopes of getting a vision of the divine palaces and the divine throne. That's a totally different form of mysticism that used to exist. It doesn't so much anymore, but so that's Kabbalah. Kabbalah is that specific lineage of Jewish mysticism originating in texts and traditions beginning in the 13th century, and then undergoing a real bump in the 16th century, and then coming down to basically every form of Judaism with the exception of one very tiny group.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to make sure we kind of got on and give a generalization. I know I've heard you say, Kabbalah is something you almost will never understand. And when you think you do, you gotta keep going. And I understand it. It's quite a situation. So it's not simple. I know a lot of people go into things and say, "Oh, what are their secrets? They got these secrets," and it's kind of got a weird rap, and that's why I wanted it to explain better. So
Yeah. I mean, and there certainly are secrets, and there are secret traditions that I don't have access to that are unique to certain communities. So it's not like I know everything about it either. But the big idea is that 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 the revelation of God in reality is such that God has actually become imbalanced, and the task is to use the very divine power that human beings have access to rebalance the nature of God. And it's a synergy. It's a synergy between the creator and the created. And in the synergy, in the relationship between creator and created, a harmony is achieved. And once that harmony is achieved, they're reunited. It's like in some sense, like, I don't know if folks have ever been who are listening who have been in like a really intense relationship, and the very intensity of the relationship causes the relationship to break, and you're able to like find out kind of what went wrong and then harmonize that, and you come back at a higher level in the relationship. And Kabbalah is the relationship between God and Israel, or maybe God and people more generally, between the creator and the created, and the drama of that relationship is the substance of Kabbalah's literature.
And with magic, I know there's some spicy things. I am absolutely fascinated, I will tell you, with the homunculus. I know that is not a normal thing for a female to go down that rabbit hole, but I did. And I know there's some things that people are like, they said they create little people in jars, and I'm like, well, there's a whole lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And I've studied about the Liber Vacay, some different things. It gets strange. And along with that, of course, alchemy,
Mhm.
and we're talking about Jewish and mysticism or magic. And so, of course, that goes right along with all this studying. Do you find yourself to be a practitioner, or do you believe in these kinds of things?
So I'm not a practitioner. No, I'm not a practitioner of any sort of esoteric tradition. And whether I believe in it, I'm a very skeptical person. My general comportment is like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And I've been in a half a dozen haunted houses, a dozen haunted houses. I've been at exorcisms. I've consulted on exorcisms. I own handwritten books of magic from the 17th century. So, I've been pretty close to the bone when it comes to being in the room with what I think to be pretty supernatural, potentially supernatural things. But I haven't seen or experienced anything that strikes me as so compellingly supernatural that I jump the I jump the gap.
Right.
But I also want to say this: um, I'm in the minority in that way. This could be very easily an example of a case of we wouldn't take it very seriously if a blind person told us they didn't believe in colors. We'd be like, yeah, like that's because you're like seeing impaired. Like, of course you don't believe in colors. You've never seen them. But let me tell
Right.
you, I'm seeing them right now. Colors are real. And that's the experience that I get when I sit down with practitioners or other believers or people, for instance, who've seen ghosts or angels or something. They're like, yeah, you just don't, because maybe you have a disability. Like maybe you
Right.
legit just like are disabled in some kind of way.
Right.
And so I try to make it very clear that my lack of belief, which is different than disbelief is an active position, but my lack of belief in the supernatural is not an indicator actually of what I think is real. It's just an indicator of a predictor rather of what I can say I believe. And I don't
Mhm.
get into the business of discounting other people's beliefs or discounting what other people have experienced or discounting what is possible, because it's more in the world than your philosophy ever dreamed of, Horatio. So I'm in that train. I try to be rigorous in my skepticism, and I also try to be open in my in what's possible, and I try to be humble and letting folks know that what I believe and disbelieve, that's not an indicator of what's real. It's just what I
May not
happen.
apply.
Yeah,
Right. Like John Dee, he literally needed someone else to help him because he couldn't do it himself, right?
that's
Like
right.
he was too
Yeah,
analytical. So
yeah,
kind
I
of
did Kelly,
fascinating.
and even his son. Even he pressed his son into scrying when Edward Kelly would leave in his puff. He would leave in a huff. So yeah, it could be the case that I just haven't found my Edward Kelly yet.
Right. Right. You never know. So have you ever talked to anybody that has said they made a homunculus?
I've never met anyone who said they made a homunculus. I mean, if Aristotle's right, every dude has made a homunculus at some point.
Right.
They're just sort of in semen. The homuncular theory of pregnancy. It's just like, you capture a homunculus from semen and kind of grow them in an artificial womb. Um, but I've never met anyone who's claimed to make a homunculus. I've definitely met people who've claimed to make alchemical gold or alchemical silver, and they've conveniently never shared those lessons with me. So I'm
Dang
still
it.
having to make my gold and silver the old-fashioned way. But never homunculus. But it is fun. You know, it's interesting that the homuncular theory of pregnancy, uh, by the time the alchemical homunculus was coming to be a legend, that the homuncular theory of pregnancy was being increasingly rejected by physicians.
Mhm.
Physicians were coming to reject the Aristotelian theory of pregnancy, where, of course, in that theory, women are just sort of passive containers for semen. They don't they're there's no sense of an egg in the homuncular theory of pregnancy. And what's interesting is that at basically the precise moment that the alchemical homunculus becomes a thing, doctors were rejecting it, and it was only alchemists that
Mhm.
were still hanging on to this sort of rather primitive Aristotelian concept, and it survived in Paracelsian alchemy and um to quite some effect. And so it's a fun theory, but it's one of those theories that was coming in exactly when the very physical science that allegedly underwrote it was collapsing.
Mm, yes. Okay, that makes total sense. And you mentioned demons in that, and creating little demons. And I know there's some fun things with demons and Jewish mysticism that our folks out there probably don't know. Might be fun to share about a little bit about that, and where to avoid kind of funny things I've heard before
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that they may not.
yeah. Jewish demons are a bit different than Christian demons. Christian demons are fallen angels. They're in the Christian mythology, of course, demons are the result of angels rebelling against God and getting cast out. That's not what happens in Jewish mythology. In Jewish mythology, demons are either created before, um, before, in some sense, creation's finished. There's a couple different stories, but of course, in the Book of Enoch, they demons come along because they want to have sex with human women. So it's just a bunch of horny teenage boys, and they come down. Earth girls are easy, they say, and so they come down to have sex with women, and ultimately get stuck here and generate a race of giants. And you get the stories of the Nephilim. In the more sinister version that we find in the Talmud and in Kabbalistic literature, the demons were created right at the very moment that the first Sabbath began. Obviously, when the Sabbath begins, you can't do work anymore, and so the demons, their spirits were created right as the sun was setting. And because the sun set right after their spirits were created, God didn't end up making them bodies. And because they don't have bodies, according to this mythology, they hate us because they can see us, but we can't see them, because spirits can see bodies, but bodies can't see spirits typically. And they get to see us having fun with our bodies. They get to see us drinking wine and having sex and doing all the fun things that you can do with the body that you can't do with just a spirit. But they feel all the things, all the desires that we feel. They feel the desire for sex. They feel the desire to eat. They feel desire to have fun, but they can't physically do it. And so in this mythology, the Shadim is what they're called in Hebrew. They hate us because and they hate us for very different reasons than the angels hate us. In Judaism, angels hate us too. But they don't like us because they can't do what we want, but we do. And therefore they try to get into our world and hurt us. Sometimes they're referred to in Hebrew as mazakin, damagers. And they're sometimes described as like, if you ever in a room by yourself and you hear scratching, the scratching is the sound of them trying to get into our world. That they're kind of like itching at getting into our world. And the Talmud says that if you could see the demons, there's so many of them, that's all you could see.
Wow.
That's all. That there are just so many of them around you constantly. That's all you could see, and they're just right here, but they can't interact with our world. But the places that are especially filthy or lonely, like bathrooms, toilets, filthy places, they have ability to the veil between our worlds is thin in those places. Ruined places where great sorrow has happened. Those places are places where the veil gets thin and they can bust through. And so the Talmud has lots of rules about, if you go to the bathroom, don't hang out in there. Get out of there. Like, don't hang out in there. If you don't sleep alone in a house. Don't go to ruins and sleep in ruins, because in those places the Shadim are more able to get in and bother you. Also, babies are especially vulnerable to Shadim. The most famous of these being Lilith, because babies are so recently from the other world that they kind of leave a kind of around them. The layer is thin because they're so kind of new to the world that that it's easy to get access to them. And even little children, the Talmud will say things like, if you see a child laughing and playing by themselves as if there's someone there, there's a demon there. It's Lilith, and you get the child away. The demon's going to kill her or kill the child. And so, like, imaginary friends in Judaism,
Not a good thing.
it's not a good thing.
Wow.
And it's funny because I'll sometimes see I have two small children, and I'll see my little children like kind of laughing and playing to themselves. And they'll like throw a ball as if something's to catch it, and I'm like, I'm not a superstitious person, but we're gonna do something else. Let's go play Nintendo or something.
No more of that. Put that thing away. Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh,
Judaism,
boy.
Judaism has a very but also the demons in Judaism can be a bit like just poltergeists. They're just bothersome. Most of the time they're just bothersome, but sometimes they're truly malevolent. I mean, they kill children. They prey on old people, people who are older and like kind of out of their mind a little bit. they're more vulnerable to demons. In fact, sick people also, people who are very ill. In fact, it's very common. It's a common practice in Judaism that if someone's very, very sick, and you think they're near death, and you think that basically the angel of death, Malach HaMavet, has been given basically the right to take them. What's typical is the idea is if you think the angel of death is close by, you wait until you think the angel of death is like basically on the prowl, and it's not uncommon to change people's names. So that when the angel of death shows up and asks the person, "Are you so and so, son of so and so?" the person can say, "No, no, 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 that ain't me. I'm not. I'm not Bezalel. I'm Moshe." And the angel's like, "I got the wrong guy. Sorry," and they leave. And there are tombstones that you can see where there's one person in the grave, but there are two names and two different sets of births and deaths, because that person has had their name changed to avoid. And some people, it works apparently for some people. So it's a way of outsmarting the angel of death.
Well, that's a good idea. I mean, if that works.
Hey, man, it might be your time, but it also might not be your time, and you might be able to cheat the angel of death. So,
right.
Judaism is very much a religion of rules, and any religion of rules is also going to be very much a religion of getting around those rules.
Right.
Man, there's some ingenious ways of getting around those rules. But demons in Judaism are a different business. I mean, angels to me are much more frightening. Angels in Judaism.
That's what I was gonna just ask.
Yeah,
Yes.
angels in Judaism are terrifying. I'd rather deal with demons any day of the week. Angels are
Wow.
absolutely horrifying. They are
What
not.
are the angels up to? I'm curious now.
So in Judaism, there's an idea that when God was going to create human beings, God sort of polled the angels and was like, "Hey, is this what do you think about this?" And the angels were like, "This is a terrible idea. They're going to be bad. They're going to not follow the rules. They're not going to do right. They're just going to be bad. They're going to kill each other, and it's going to be bad. They're not worth it. They're just going to be evil. Human beings are going to be overwhelmingly evil. There'll be good ones, but most of them will be bad." And so the angels were like, "Don't make them. Don't make them." And ultimately God decided, well, in the end, they'll be just. And it was a wager. God didn't know and the angels didn't know. And it was a wager. Basically, God, bet the angels that they'd be good. And you still get remnants of this in the Job story, where Job is basically wagering with God about whether Job is really righteous. And the idea is that the angels basically think we're bad. Basically, they think that we're bad. And since they don't have bodies like our bodies, they think we all stink. They hate being around us. They think they think we just reek. And they think of us as sort of I don't know if the right way of thinking about it is we're like vermin or something. They're very noble. They don't age. They don't have sex. They serve God militantly. They never fail. They look at us as, I mean, it must be the same way that we look at monkeys or something, right? They're just silly, dangerous creatures.
Right.
And so the angels in Judaism have a very low opinion of us, and basically also they want to see us fail because they've bet against us,
Right.
and they can smell us, they're and so, and also they're terrifying. They are physically, I always tell people they're in Judaism, angels are like space marines. They're just militant soldiers of God who are no nonsense, mass murderers. I mean, these are the same entities that went into Egypt to slaughter children. They will kill kids and kill women and children. They don't care. When God says it, they click their boots and do it. I mean, they are stormtroopers. They are really terrifying, and they're no nonsense. They have no time for our nonsense, And so there's a tradition of mysticism called Hechelot mysticism or Merkava mysticism, where part of what the mystic does is they go into the chambers, the divine palaces, and in order to do that, they have to bypass all these angels, and these angels do not want you there. They're like, "This is not your place. You need to be back down where you belong." And there are all these stories of mystics getting killed are going crazy. There's a famous story where one of these mystics named Ben Zoma, he was one of these guys who went to these palaces, and he had something happened, and he went crazy. And in Aramaic it says he went outside, and what would happen is that he just stared out into the void forever. He never came back. He just lost his mind. Other people died, and not just died, like, ripped apart in the street. Like just this, ripped apart. These angels are not mucking about with people. And so the angels in Judaism, they're very protective of God, and they don't, they're very protective of the sanctity of God. And we're not holy. We are, we are not holy creatures according, very rarely are we very holy, and in Judaism. And they're very protective of God and the sanctity of God, and they will kill you.
What
And
about the people that call upon them? Like, I mean, like not only John D, but a lot of people, call the angels for protection. Is this a bad plan?
I
This
mean,
sounds like a bad plan.
yeah. So in Judaism, it's very rare to call upon angels. The only time in Judaism that we call upon angels is on the Sabbath. We call we welcome angels into our home, and it's in one song that we do this, and we call them in. We say, hey, look, it's a Sabbath. We can't fight. We'll bless you. You'll bless us, and we'll go about our way. And the song begins, come angels into our home. Let's bless each other. And then at the very end of the song, Barchoni Shalom, like, and now it's time for you to leave. And that's it. There is no invoking angels in Judaism. It's because Judaism has a very different conception of angels than Christianity does. And that's why someone like John D is much more copacetic to the idea of calling angels. And in Christianity, angels typically bring relatively good news. You think of the angel Gabriel coming to Mary. The angel brings good news. The angels don't bring good news to us.
Not a good idea.
It's almost always like, you mucked it up, and now we're gonna kill you all. And
oh my gosh. Yeah.
so angels again. Do you want a cosmic marine in your house that did not vote for your existence? The answer to that
and
is
was
no.
actually against it. Yeah.
Against it, actively against it. The answer is no.
Yes.
But
yeah.
the idea is that the angels, like they keep an arm's length to human beings in Judaism. They are not our friends. They are not, they're not our friends. They're not on a team.
Wow.
So it's a totally different conception of angels. There are no, there's no guardian angels and stuff like that. You don't get any of that. The angels are mostly hostile to human beings.
Well, and even John D said a lot of what you're saying. He said they thought we stunk, that they were constantly telling them to go bathe, that they didn't like them in general, and kind of tried to cause chaos even when they did ask for things like, I want money or whatever, for example. And then they're like, are you sure about that? And then they let your mom die or something crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the angels are the angels are, at least with the John D stuff. The angels are always frustrated with D and Kelly, because D and Kelly were just like teenage boys. The angels were like, all right, we're gonna tell you about the apocalypse, and D and Kelly were like, okay, that's great. So what about buried treasure? And the angels like, oh, what? And then one time Kelly's like, I need to get a horse. Can I get a horse? And the angels like, we're not here to give you stuff.
Do what we want.
Yeah, we're here to like reveal of you and the nature of the apocalypse and blah blah blah. And D and Kelly were it's like, it's it always reminds you of what happens if kids were to walk into like a nuclear power plant. They just hit random buttons to see what happened, and D and Kelly were just sort of pressing the angels' buttons. And man, there's great sequences even in the D and Kelly diaries where the angels, they mess their Latin up, and D has to correct them, or they miss mathematics up, and D's like, huh? Or So yeah, though, I've studied the D and Kelly stuff quite a lot, and yeah,
I
those
found it
journals are
fascinating.
those
Yeah.
journals are yeah, they're fascinating. I've handled them. I've handled the
Oh,
actual
wow.
manuscripts.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's amazing.
it's quite a thing to see them in real life, and um, yeah, I love that D and Kelly stuff.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that survived that you're like, wow, what if it hadn't, right? Like
Yep.
so great that
It barely
it
did.
did. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was stored. There was a trunk that D had where he stuffed all those manuscripts in the a secret compartment in the trunk, and they found them on accident. And I think it was the wife of some guy found them. He bought the trunk, and he found all these papers and took them to, I think it was Cotton or Elias Ashmole maybe.
I think it
And
was cotton. Yeah,
yeah,
I think you're right. Mhm.
and it was like, I think I found some weird stuff here. What is this? And they're like, holy crap, it's John D stuff.
And they
Um,
were like tearing out the pages and she was using it for other things. And
yeah,
I'm
they
like,
said
oh
the
my
legend is there. She
gosh.
was using them for pie paper.
Oh my
She's
gosh.
using it for pie paper. I don't know how much that's true, um, but yeah, we were very lucky to have any of the D material at all. And in fact, people often don't know this, that after D and Kelly kind of broke up, D continued scrying. He continued working with a different scryer when he got back to England, under James the First of all
That's
things.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah, under James the First.
Lucky he didn't get burned at the stake, right?
And he actively called out the administration of James the First to put him on trial for sorcery. He was like, I'll
Mm,
take the Pepsi challenge on it. But
wow.
they, of course, James the First never did, because basically I think James knew that it would be a bad idea. Um,
Mhm.
and D was pretty poor at that point and kind of isolated in many ways. He didn't have any political influence or anything. But he had another scryer named Bartholomew Hickman, and we only have about 5 pages. But D worked with Hickman longer than he worked with Kelly.
Oh, wow.
So none of that material survives. D
Mm.
ultimately destroyed it. But we have at the very end of the Cotton Appendix, which is printed in True and Faithful Relation, we have just a little bit of the scrying he did with Bartholomew Hickman, and unfortunately, that doesn't survive. I think he scried with him for
Yeah.
9 years. He was with Kelly for
Oh,
7.
wow.
So who knows? Who knows what was in
Yeah.
all that?
I mean, what do you think in your mind, or I guess counsel people when they're like, I'm going to do Enochian magic and call down some angels today? I'd be like, what are you doing? But I don't know.
It's not for me as an academic. It's not for me to get in not for me to give spiritual advice. I always say
Right.
that the advice I give people is, it's like anything else. If you're going to, if you wanted to build a car, I would tell you, like, okay, like, you need to really know your way around cars. If you want to build a house, like, you need to really know your way around carpentry and power tools. Like, you need to know, your first project should not be building a house. Your first project should be building a shelf or something. I don't know. And so it's just like, how well do you know the literature? How well do you know the mythology? How well do you know the background of all this? And also, I'll say this: it's not my job to gatekeep. It's not my job to tell people, like, until you do X, Y, and Z, you can't do A, B, and C, because I'm not a practitioner. And so it's not my job to get in people's business and tell them what they should and shouldn't do. But it is my business to say, like, if you want to do Enochian magic, you should probably understand what's going on in the D and Kelly sessions.
Right.
In the same way that, if you wanted to, I don't know, this is a bad example, but it's the first. Like, if you wanted to, like, I don't know, play a Star Wars role playing game, you probably need to see the movies.
Right.
Like, you got to kind of know who Darth Vader is. I don't know, like,
Safe to say,
yeah,
right?
like, if you want to, like, you got to know who Darth Vader. You got to know who the Jedi are. So it's just about, like, you need to know the lay of the. It seems to me, rather, you should know the lay of the land before you dive into doing the thing. But again, it's also not my place to tell people, like, hey, you
Done.
can't until I don't have the
Right.
ability to do that. I don't have I'm not the game warden of Enochian magic or anything else for that matter.
Right. What do you think is the most common misconception about Jewish mysticism?
That we agree on stuff. that there's like a bunch of Jewish Kabbalists out there who like we're on the same team, and all the Jewish Kabbalists like agree about stuff. Um,
Right.
um, yeah, the vast majority of Jewish mysticism is extremely convoluted and very complicated, and there have been sustained debates over the centuries about exactly how things are supposed to work. And like every other religion, there's debate. Like it's not homogenous, it's not uniform, it's not monolithic. I'll give one example. Myself, Lurianic Kabbalah is the dominant form of Kabbalah. I don't like it. I like Cordoveran Kabbalah, the Kabbalah that existed one generation before that. I think it's the best. And if I had to like die on the hill of Kabbalah, I'd be like, we should only do Cordoveran Kabbalah. I'm sure very few people would agree with me. So I think that the biggest misconception is there is the Kabbalah. There is Kabbalah, of which there are lots of schools inside of it, most of which do not agree with each other. And this is just part of like a sort of global anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that Jews control the world and we all agree about things. And I'm like, look, my wife is a rabbi. If you want to see that Jews agree with stuff, just come to a board meeting and just see how much we don't have our situation together. We're just like arguing about how to spend $50 on Staples or something. Yeah, it's not homogenous. It's not monolithic. There's a lot of disagreement. The other thing maybe I'll say about Kabbalah that people don't really understand is if you think about the amount of Kabbalah learning among Jews, most Jews, Orthodox, Reform, whatever, know basically nothing about Kabbalah. It is not taught. You do not learn it until very late. You do not learn it until basically you get tapped to learn it. And 95% of the most important Kabbalistic books are not translated to English. So they're all in Hebrew, they're all in Aramaic, basically. And with the exception of things like the Sefer Zohar, recently translated by Daniel Matt, which is just mind-bogglingly amazing. But most Jews never touch Kabbalah.
Really?
Now, that's not to say that Kabbalah doesn't influence their lives. It does. If you've ever gone to a synagogue service on a Friday night, you've gone to a service called Kabbalat Shabbat, which was invented by Kabbalists. So it influences and it pervades Jewish life. But the average Jewish person, Orthodox, conservative, Reform, they will never crack open a book of Kabbalah ever. It will never happen in their life. My wife went through rabbinical school, and never was there even a class offered on Kabbalah. It was considered just too advanced. So it has a huge impact in Judaism, but it is rarely ever studied in the Jewish world. Outside of very elite, specifically Kabbalistic centers of learning.
What do you think is like the most important thing? Like if you had to have one thing survive, or I guess a handful, I won't slam you into the corner with one, in esotericism that is like just grandly important for people to like have some knowledge about. I know they're vast subjects and not everyone, like you said, it's a niche, right? Like not everybody wants to go down this road, but I mean, the things that you think maybe should be something that people should learn about if they had a desire, of course.
Yeah, without any doubt, it's Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. Yeah, that's the in many ways occultism led up to that, and in many ways all Western occultism is downstream of the 3 books of occult philosophy. And so it's a book of monumental historical, religious, spiritual, esoteric importance. It's a book that's very poorly understood, unfortunately. I'm teaching a class on it right now. And I would argue that it's if everything else had to go, that would be the text. I would say like we have to preserve this. I have a copy of the first edition printed in 1533, and
oh wow,
there's something about holding it, like you're holding a copy that the Dominicans tried to repress. Like they really tried to actively destroy it. And you're holding this survivor. It feels like you're holding something. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it is. It's
Sacred
sacred.
almost,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's a survivor. It should not have been here. It should not have survived, and it did. And there's something about if when I'm feeling jaded, or when I'm feeling kind of burnt out, or when I'm feeling kind of yeah, when everything feels like a job, like everything, when you feel like a job, I can go and crack open my bookshelf, and I'll grab it, and it's like electricity. Like instantly, I'm like, yeah, there it is. It's real. It's like, there it is. Like this is, you know, what an amazing thing to have survived. So yeah, I would tell people, and if people want to read it, they should read it in the translation by Eric Perdue. That in my opinion, that's the best translation out right now. And me and a colleague are actively translating some of Agrippa's other works. So hopefully that'll come out at some point soon. But
Awesome. That would
but
be
yeah,
great.
I would say that Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy is
Amazing.
the pinnacle text.
And along with that one, has there been anything in Jewish mysticism like that, just other than Agrippa fueling your fire, like that changed your life, like kind of like that? Like,
Yeah, I would say in Jewish mysticism, for sure. I mean, the Sefer Yetzirah is profoundly powerful text. I come back to it every year. I teach it every year, and every time I come back to it, I see something new. The Sefer Zohar, it's monumental work, and in the Daniel Matt edition, it comes out at 12 volumes, and it's still not complete.
wow.
There are probably 6 more volumes or so that could be translated, and that text is inexhaustible. A colleague of mine, Zevi, from the YouTube channel Thinkers of Unity, he and I studied out loud, studied through one section called the Yanuka, the youth, and we studied it, and I think it ultimately took us 12 hours to study
Wow.
in what in the Zohar is about 20 pages in the original Aramaic, and it was one of the best intellectual experiences of my entire life. Just really getting into the Zohar, really understanding how the Zohar thinks. So the Zohar is just an extremely monumental text, very difficult, but utterly unlike anything else that exists in the
Wow.
Western world. A beautiful text, very, very strange, very bewildering, but of monumental importance. But yeah, I mean, the Zohar, Sefer Yetzirah. Unfortunately, the other books I can think of are not translated. Pardes Ramim, the Orchard of the Pomegranates by Cordovero. Those texts are also amazing, but there are no translations.
Wow. That's hard. I mean, like you said, it's a niche, but I think it is a growing niche. And obviously, with the symbolism we see, especially in America, right? Like, I mean, people always say, well, America was built on religious freedom. And I'm like, well, I mean,
as long as you're religious in a very particular kind of way.
Yeah.
It's true and not true, right? Thomas
Yeah.
Jefferson was a deist. He made his own version of the Bible where he cut all the sections of the life and moral teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. So he got rid of all the miracles and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it was not exactly pluralistic, but at the same time, I've been to Newport in Rhode Island, and that has the oldest synagogue in the country, and it was one of the earliest synagogues built in the Western world without a wall around it. Like that's kind of a thing. Like there is some truth to the whole, and George Washington wrote to the members of the Torah synagogue saying to them, bigotry is not going to have a place here. We're not going to persecute people. And again, did he own slaves? Yes. Could women vote? No. So it's of course quite complicated, but yeah. And America has been the great laboratory of religion. We think of the LDS Church emerging in this country.
Yes.
We think about all kinds of religions emerging in this country. So it also has been a religious laboratory in many ways. And so spiritualism was born here. It's easy to forget, like seances, despite that the term is French. In some ways, that entire spiritualistic kind of religiosity was born right here in this country. When Aleister Crowley was shopping Thelema, he shopped it mostly here. You know, Aleister Crowley won a grand tour. He was in New Orleans. He was here in Detroit. He was Chicago. He was in New York. He really shopped Thelema in America, and it was in America that it did quite well. You know, along in Germany, but yeah, it's America has been a great incubator of innovative religiosity.
Truth, absolutely truth. And we can't go too far into this without bringing up gematria, though I've heard
Yeah.
you say before it can make you crazy.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Anyone who has you know, mental health stuff, I always tell them to stay away from gematria. That when I've seen people go off the deep end, it typically gematria is a pretty good indicator of them coming off the deep end, or going off the deep end rather.
And for our listeners, like just a brief on gematria, like what is gematria? I know, but
yeah, gematria is so Hebrew is like Greek in that letters and numbers, rather letters do double duty. They both make sounds and also their numbers. So the letter Aleph is the number 1, letter Bet is number 2, Yod is 10, Yod Aleph is 11. And so, so because Hebrew letters can be both letters and numbers, you can read the Torah as a series of letters, or you could read it as a series of numbers. And what people found was that there are all these kind of weird coincidences about letters and numbers. And this survives in the most basic kinds of things. For instance, when I give charity, when I give money, Jews will always give money in multiples of 18. So you'll get a donation from a Jewish name, and it'll be like, you get $36. And you're like, why do they give $36? A weird number. It's because it's 18 times 2, which is an 18 in Hebrew is chai, which means life. And so you always like give in multiples of life. So that's just an example of like very simple gematria that and 8 in chai in Hebrew is 18, and therefore you know, like cheers, l'chaim, like you give in multiples of 18. So that's just a really simple example. There are lots and lots of more of these where, you know, if you add Av and Ima, you get Yeled, and, you know, mother and wife, mother and woman, you get, you know, child. Yeah, the numerical values are the same. And there are a couple commentaries, famous commentaries in the Torah that focus on this gematria stuff. So yeah, it's a if you are a math nerd and a Bible nerd, you will love gematria, because there is a lot of weird coincidences in there. I don't know what to make of it, but there are a bunch of fun ones.
yeah, people go wild on it a lot of times. I see a lot of things about it, and I'm pretty skeptical like you are. I'm always like, well, maybe, you know, it's a maybe for me.
Yeah, you know, it's like yeah, I don't, and also, like, you know, there's all kinds of forms of gematria. It's not just like if you switch the numbers in the front and the back, or you add them up, or you read them backwards. There's lots of versions of this. You know, look, I think that if you look for patterns hard enough, you'll find them. Like, human beings are pattern recognizing creatures. That's one of our evolutionary advantages. And if you go looking for patterns, you'll see them. If you stare long enough at clouds, you'll see dinosaurs, you know, or whatever. And so anytime I see pattern recognition gone haywire, I'm like, yeah, like, you know, it's not surprising. This is why I tell people gematria can be a dangerous place, because if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, it's really easy for people that see patterns already and are paranoid or something, you know, to go off into the deep end. And you'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, about the emails I get where people have found all kinds of things and everything. They've added up the first 3 letters of every speech that Kamala Harris gave, and that tells them that she's really, you know, this. And I'm like, no, I don't think so.
You're like, that's okay, maybe
Yeah,
not, right?
yeah. No, I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a hard sell a lot of times for sure. And then as far as for you and for where you're going with everything, with your channel, with what you're doing, what's some advice for our viewers out there?
In terms of the channel or in terms of
Yeah, like
esotericism?
learning esotericism, the channel, like how to, get into things, like, because I think it's important. I really
Yeah,
do.
I agree. I agree. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. So the one thing I got this question a lot over the course of the years of like, how do you get into esotericism? How do you study it reliably? Because there's so many unreliable sources, and there's just I saw this in a dream and wrote a book about it. Now it's on Amazon, and who
Mhm.
knows if that's reliable? So actually, I made a resource for people that is basically a vetted academic bibliography. So if you're interested in Gnosticism, here are the top 3 books you need on your shelf. If you're interested in magic, here's the top 10 books. If you're interested in necromancy, here are the top 3 books. And they're all academic, they're all peer reviewed, they're all reliable. And what it allows you to do is this is the lay. You read those books, that's the lay of the land. That's where we are right now in the scholarship. And then you rabbit hole. Then you
Mhm.
rabbit hole, and that's you. Like you have to rabbit hole on your own. You have to follow the
Yep.
sources. You'll need to learn to read Latin or whatever or Hebrew. You rabbit hole, but it's very important for people not to rabbit hole before you get the lay of the land in terms of reliable, peer-reviewed, trustworthy sources. Especially if you don't read the languages. If you don't read Latin, if you don't read Hebrew, you can't. You don't know. You just can't. You can't. You don't know. And so what I tell people is like my reading list is not to tell you what to believe because I can't do that, and I don't read anything. But what it can do is say this is the lay of the land as far as we understand it, and if you want to dive, you got to learn the languages, you got to learn to read the manuscripts, you got to get into it, and you know at least you'll be jumping out of the plane with a parachute. You
Right.
know, so you know, I encourage people to jump, but here, like you need to get your parachute. And your parachute is you need to know the scholarship. Because
Yeah.
otherwise you're just reading crazy people on the internet. You're just reading
Right.
some guy on Reddit. You're just reading whatever, you know, uh, stuff this guy cooked up because he saw stuff in a vision. And that's perfectly fine. But seeing stuff in a vision isn't the same as we studied the manuscripts for 20 years and we've analyzed them, given every tool we have, and this is what we think is going on. That's very
Mhm.
different than, you know, my dog talked to me in a dream. Um, so
Then you end
uh,
up son of Sam.
yeah, exactly. And you don't want you don't want David Berkowitz telling you how to do Enochian magic. And
No, no.
so you need to look at the sources, look at the data, look at the evidence, look at the manuscripts, look at the languages, and at that point, I'm like, look, there's your parachute. Jump.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I mean, that's a perfect like way to put it for everybody. So like you said, they can go find your list and they don't have to just guess because I mean, it is hard when you
It's
start
super
getting
hard.
into things. Yeah.
It's a mess, and I'll continue the link if you want to put
Awesome.
it in the
I would love
description so
that.
you can include it for
Yes.
folks to have. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, are the academics, is the peer review, is all of that the end all be all? Absolutely not. I don't ever tell someone that there's a final authority in all of this. I'm not a final authority on it. Uh, we are all scraping around in the dark trying to sort all this out, and we're doing the best we can. And you know, but there is something said around when I have an idea and I want to put it out there, that 10 people get their eyes on it who are experts too. And they're like, yeah, this is good. That's not so good. This is definitely bad. It just
Right.
means it doesn't mean it's right, but it means at least it's been vetted.
Right.
It's been vetted by people who are smart and thoughtful and want to see good scholarship. So yeah, I always tell people, don't confuse academic scholarship with being the final authority, but also, uh, having peer review and having some mechanisms by which we check each other. That's the thing. And trust me, if I'm writing a script for an Esoteric episode and I'm just totally unsure about something, I email experts. I
Right.
reach out to a professor and be like, hey, you translated this. This doesn't make sense to me. Like, what's going on here? And
Right.
almost every time they'll pick the phone up and say, all right, let's talk about it. Because they want me to get it right, because they know that I have a crowd of 40,000 people who are going to watch the episode, and they want the data to have integrity. They want the evidence. They want the evidence. They want good data to lead. And they're more than happy to, like, help push the envelope forward in terms of a high degree of integrity of data.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes complete sense, because like you said, you don't want to be putting anything out that isn't making sense to you if you're studying it. So I think that's fantastic. I know we don't have you for much longer. Anything else on Jewish mysticism? I know we were brief today, that would be pertinent for this episode for today, because it's brief.
Yeah, it's a little brief. We can come back and do it again, talk more about it
Sure.
later. I would say that I just did an episode on this recently. One question I get all the time is, what's the best book to start with Kabbalah? Authentic historical Kabbalah. And the book that I've settled on, that I think is the best book, is a book called the Shomer Emonim, which means the guardian of the faithful, I guess, or the guardian of the faith. It was published in the 18th century, and it is the last Kabbalistic book that is basically a textbook for how to do Kabbalah, how to think Kabbalah. And it's the last of those kinds of books that is universally recognized in Judaism. After that, everything's split into different factions. And so Shomer Emunim is the last book where all the factions say, yeah, that. And it's great because the edition that I would recommend, and I can again give you a link to it so you can give it to folks that want to watch or read it rather, is that it is we have it both in Hebrew and in English, so you can read it in Hebrew if you want. We have a very reliable English translation, and then we have essays to help back up and explain and unpack it. Not everything about the book I agree with. I think that the author and the translator believes things very differently than I do, but they're transparent about that, and the translation itself is very reliable. It's a good translation, very good translation. So I would say that if you want access to authentic Kabbalah, like real Kabbalah, that the Shomer Emonim is the best thing, because you can read in English. If you can read Hebrew, you can read in Hebrew. The Hebrew's right there, and the Hebrew is it's not easy because it's Kabbalah, but it's not hard Hebrew either. It's the kind of Hebrew that with a couple semesters of Hebrew, you could read relatively, with some degree of fluency. So that's what I would say, is that if you want access to real Kabbalah, that's the book. So if you want real Kabbalah, Shomer Emonim. If you want a jumping off point to real occultism, I would say that the 3 books of occult philosophy by Cornelius Agrippa is your jumping off point there. And if you get your head around both those texts, which are not easy, you'll have a good gold standard. You'll have a good touchstone by which to enrich your studies of either Kabbalah or of occultism more broadly, whether it's Aleister Crowley or Wicca or whatever. They're all downstream of the 3 books of occult philosophy, and all contemporary Kabbalah is also downstream of Shomer Emunim.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I love your channel. Everybody needs to check it out, and I'm going to let you tell them where. But I have definitely appreciated this interview and would love to have you on again sometime. I think you are one of the most detailed that I've seen when it comes to, anything esoteric wise. I mean, you really cover the bases. And so if people don't understand something and they want a tiny overview and they can't read it or won't read it, it's a good idea to tune in. I feel I think it's a great channel. I think
appreciate that.
it's a service to people, because it's something that, like you said, almost went extinct, and people don't realize how many things actually, it's in everything. When you start learning, you see it everywhere. Like, you can't not see it, I guess, is the best way.
Yeah, esotericism is actually, much more impactful on our intellectual and spiritual reality than people know. But the channel is if I really do, the channel is geared around empowering people to learn it for themselves, that's why every episode has book recommendations. I don't, Esoterica as a channel, which is where folks can find me, it's Esoterica on YouTube. No one should ever think that watching an episode on Esoterica is the end of learning. It is the beginning of a process. It's meant to empower you to go do the work of teaching yourself or learning this material, because you can't really understand this material deeply from a YouTube video. You got to get in the books. You've got to get in the original languages. There's no way around that. And laziness is not going to give you what you want. It's just not. And so folks can find me on Esoterica on YouTube. That's my YouTube channel. And the task of the channel is basically to provide college level, graduate level content on topics in the history of Western Esotericism. And it's a real great blessing to be able to do that work.
That's amazing, and I appreciate you once again for coming on. I had to chat with you. I was so excited. Like I said, it's everywhere, and I think the people that don't see that yet would be surprised, right? Yeah. When they get there. So fascinating, and I appreciate you so much, and I will add all the links in the show notes and hope to talk to you again soon. Absolutely. So thank you so much. I hope you have a good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Absolutely.
Perfect.